I'm Jared Craig with the Vet Voice, and as the Georgia Veterans for Trump president, I have the pleasure of speaking with Robert Smith, who's running for Georgia State Senate in the District 30. So, Robert, I appreciate you coming on, and could you please speak to our listeners and our viewers a little bit about who you are and why you're running for office?
Um, my name is Robert Smith, and I'm running for the special election in Georgia Senate District 30. The election's on February 13th. I'm not a politician. I don't anticipate being a politician. I have no interest in making this a career or using this to get a higher office or a government appointment or something like that. I've been in business, in the founder business for 40 years. And I'm semi-retired. I still do some consulting, but this election came up, and I'm very concerned about what's been going on in our country. And it seemed like an opportunity to try to make a difference. I have my wife and I have 4 sons and 7 grandchildren, and I'm very concerned about the America that they're going to be living in. I'm a conservative Republican. I've been a Trump supporter and America First. Been to Trump rallies and started out with the Tea Party. Part of the reason I'm running, I'll just tell you a little bit about my story, is I've always been interested in politics, even when I was working, and we donated to people and went to things as we could. But in 2020. When I went to vote in November, when I got ready to vote, they told me that I'd already voted, that I'd mailed in a ballot. And so they let me do a provisional, but I had no idea, if that provisional counted or what. So after that, I decided to get more active, and I've gone to things that, various groups about going to paper ballots, the election, integrity things, and also to various Republican Party things. So that's really what kind of got me going. And then more recently, when Trump got indicted last summer, last fall, I called some of our state representatives and people down in Atlanta, and they were not interested in doing anything about it.
Right.
They were nice. Well, a couple of them were very nice, but clearly, they weren't interested in doing about it. One of them was not very nice, and he told me I was, not very smart for suggesting that they have a special session or do something like that. So I was very disappointed in that. They all told me the same thing, that, well, this case is terrible. It'll eventually be, lost on appeal, but they didn't want to get involved. And I just was shocked by that they would let something like this stand, and basically not want to do anything about it. So that also has made me interested in getting involved. So my principles are Georgia First, America First. In the business that I was in, the casting business, there's 2 really things that are very important for national defense, and that's iron and steel. The casting business is the iron part, and then there's steel. Over the last 25 years, our business has been under unfair attack from China, and I've seen our industry, since I've been in it, shrink by 90% due to unfair trade. And if you ever have to fight a war, in the foundation of any modern society is iron and steel or castings.
Right. I agree. I have one of my best friends from law school owns a steel business in Mississippi, and he tells me the same thing of what you're saying, that the market is being flooded with cheap, low standard steel from China, from India, from South America, which is really China. And the market is unfair. And you're right. When we have a hot war, we need steel to build everything from armaments to everything.
One of the things that I just love about Trump is he gets it. He talks about how stupid we are to let this happen to us.
Right.
And I just think, when I hear him talk about it, he gets it. He knows what's going on there. So but that's what, I think Trump did a whole bunch of great stuff. So I mean, for somebody that the Republicans really didn't like, he was one hell of a good Republican. He did what they were talking about.
Right. And I can tell from your bobblehead behind you, he's hugging the American flag in your bobblehead. And I was watching the news last night, and one of the other candidates was speaking that it's strange to see an American candidate for U.S. president hug the American flag and how that resonates with the American people. And it was refreshing to see a optimistic leader tell us we can prevail. We can make America great again. Instead of this blaming, loathing 8 years of Obama, America's the cause of the world's evils. I think that really stands on its head. And that's what got a lot of people behind Trump. So we need more people like that. That are going to come off the sidelines and do what's necessary to protect the constitutional rights, to preserve this nation. As we're being invaded right now, every single state, 100%. Every single state is being hit with the border crisis.
It's just hard to imagine that our government doesn't, or it just decides on, which laws they want to enforce now,
Right.
So if, one of the things I talk about is that, I think as a citizen, the value of citizenship is eroding. It seems like if you, I've worked all my life, paid a ton of taxes, I'd always tried to do the right thing, and yet if we're like somehow the problem, it's mind-boggling, what's been going on. So, but that's part of the reason I want to try to make a difference. I believe that our Constitution was set up. Those guys were brilliant, and we need to go back to understanding that government has a limited role in society. I mean, there are important things for government to do, no doubt about it, but the government doesn't need to do everything. One of the things that I'd also talk about is, people say, well, we got to get the money out of politics. Well, you're never going to get the money out of politics because the government's involved in everything. Our industry was, the iron industry, the casting, we were slow to react. We didn't realize that we were being, sold out. And probably until all of a sudden we saw, all this, stuff flooding the market and all the places closed. So then we formed a trade group to go lobby in Washington, D.C. That was back in the 80s. But before that, we never had to do that because we weren't under attack by the government. And right. But that's why there's money in politics. So if you want to take the money out of politics, get the government out of everything. It's not that hard to figure out to me.
Well, I think that the role of a state senator, the role of a state representative should be way more, I would say, on the small, finer details of the American way of life. Based upon the 10th Amendment of the United States, the federal government has limited express powers, and all other powers are reserved to the states. And we see that has been turned on its head with the overuse of the Commerce Clause, the overuse of the Supremacy Clause, to then invade the industries, the concerns, and the needs of the citizens of each state. And we see Donald Trump turning that back, even with the Dobbs opinion, overturning Roe, pushing it back to the states. So I think that running for office as a state senator, you should have more impact on the citizens' lives than anyone in Washington, D.C. So I think it's a noble cause. And let me ask you a couple of questions about some policy issues concerning education. The federal Department of Education really is a banking system. Do you have any ideas or thoughts about improving the education system at the state level?
I have a website, it's bobsmithforsenate.com. But one of the things that I'm running on, one of the main issues is school choice. I know from a business person, competition makes you better.
Right.
And so therefore, if we can enter, a simple voucher system where, every student in Georgia can take a voucher and then they can go to the school that their parents think is best for them. And I think you'd be amazed at how much improvement you'd see in the schools. I know that a lot of the status quo is not interested in that, including, public school teachers and people that are, involved in the schools. But, in business, you face competition from everywhere, and it makes you better. And if you don't get better, then you go out of business. So if the schools would have to compete for students, I think the improvement to education would be humongous. As for the national, the federal government, I'm not in favor of the Department of Education. I never have been. Schools should be, best handled by the people in their community, and at least when it comes to the K through 12. So
That's
one of my things that I'm interested in getting to happen.
Well, in the education system, we see so many of our schools inundated with illegal aliens, the children of illegal aliens, and they're eating up the resources in every state. I've interviewed candidates from Rhode Island to Washington State. There is no state immune from this invasion of illegal aliens that are eating up our resources. And education, most counties, almost half of the taxes that are generated are spent on education. And the public education system being flooded with children who are not coming from taxpayers are eroding that quality of education because it's slowing everything down because we're having to get back to the basic language standards. So first of all, I want to explain the special election. The special election is coming up February 13th, but let's say that you prevail on the 13th. Are you still up for a primary election in May?
Yes.
So this is to get a placeholder from here until May. And are you also, I'm assuming, running for the May and general election if you win the primary?
So if there's an outright winner on the 13th, 50% plus one vote, then you would take that seat up until the end of the year.
Okay.
All right, but then the primary is almost immediately, so you would have to stand for the primary again, and then you would have to and if you won that primary, then you would have to stand for election to a full term in the fall in November. So it's possible that if there's a runoff in this election, that they may the legislative session may be over before you're ever sworn in. It's right. Possible. Hopefully not, but it is kind of crazy that how Mike Dugan resigned to run for Congress, and they decided to have what I'd call a snap election, and that's part of the reason. I think if it was a normal election where it was you had 6 months or whatever, I think that would be harder for somebody like me, who's a complete outsider. But I think because it is like I call it a mad scramble. Mm-hmm. There's really nobody, nobody with a strong, lead to, I think, we have a chance. So.
Well, I want to call everybody from Senate District 30 to investigate all of your options. We like Robert Smith. We want you to get out and vote for an America First candidate. I believe that Smith is your America First candidate for District 30. We need more people like him in the state Senate to promote the America First agenda. And you mentioned your website before. I'd like you to remind the people where they can go to find out more information about you, where they can donate if they'd like, or volunteer between now and the special election.
All right, thank you very much. The website is bobsmith4senate.com. I also have a Facebook page that's Bob Smith for Senate as well. But if you go to the website, you'll see us, about me. You'll be able to donate, and it has the issues that I'm campaigning on. The number one issue is election integrity. My number two issue would be eliminating the Georgia state income tax. And the third issue would be school choice. Now, I'm interested in other things, but in a brief period of time, those three would be the ones that, I'm interested in doing something. Like I said, when I've talked to our politicians, I've always, they like to talk, and I'm not that big of a talker. I want to take action. I was CEO of a company that had 2,000 employees, and I learned that you can get a lot of things done by working with people, and you listen to them, and you understand where they're coming from, and then you make sure they understand where you're coming from, and you can usually get something done. And I think with what's going on down with Fannie Willis and the Trump thing, it's just hard for me to fathom. That 30 miles down the road, they're trying. It's a political persecution, and for our legislature now, I think those guys have heard from a lot of people like me, and so now they've going to do a committee, and they're going to talk about it.
Right, finally, right. Well, here's
finally,
one thing.
They're going to talk about it at least.
One thing that I see in different state legislatures is that it's a part-time position, but we need a full-time attitude for this part-time position. And I think that the American voter, the Georgia voter, is sick and tired of that part-time attitude. When things really matter, it's disheartening that you have so much inaction. So, Mr. Smith, thank you for coming on the show. I appreciate your candid interview, and I hope to be able to announce our endorsement within the next 24 hours. So, but if there's anything else you'd like to say to the voters of Georgia's Senate District 30, please do so.
Yes, I would. I think it's important to know, where the money's coming from for your candidates. There is outside money coming in this race. It's coming from some outside interest groups that would like to maintain the status quo. I'm not taking any outside money at all. It's friends and acquaintances and concerned citizens. I'm not taking PAC money from lobbyists. I believe that the history shows that people live their best lives with the least amount of government. And if you have more government, your life is never as good. My philosophy would be, if I was in the legislature, would be, if it reduces freedom, I'm going to vote no. If it increases your taxes, I'm going to vote no. If it increases the size of the government, I'm going to vote no. So if you're interested in maintaining the status quo and what's been going on, and you like that, then I'm not your guy. But
Gotcha.
if you think we need change to go back to what was intended with a limited government and things like that, then please consider voting for me.
Well, thank you, Mr. Smith, and I look forward to seeing you, because I am a District 30 voter. I will support you at the ballot box on February 13th. So
thank you very much.
Thank you for coming on, and keep doing what you're doing, because I think you've got the right message.
Thank you.